Follow me on a journey where no one has ever been before. Listen to TheCaliEffect.
When Yu-Gi-Oh! First came into existence, it was focused on one thing: summoning monsters bigger than the opponent and beating the opponent down appropriately. But now, as the game evolved, we've started to see certain cards that seem to take over a game if left untouched or unnoticed. These cards are very big at changing the game and shaping it into any way the person playing the card wants it to be. These cards are later on defined as Floodgate cards, and today I'm going to be telling you guys why Floodgate cards are so effing good. That's right, I could have said fucking, but I wanted to say effing. Well, first and foremost, before we even go forward with what a Floodgate card, defining Floodgate cards or why are they so good, you must know what a Floodgate card is. Floodgate cards are the cards that are defined to prevent your opponent from making certain moves over an extended period of time. Now, I know that definition seems kind of bland, mainly because I made it up. I kind of wrote it down, and I was like, that's the best way to describe Floodgate. Since we don't really have a Yu-Gi-Oh! Dictionary, it's up to us players to make one ourselves. And when I'm saying that, I'm not talking about cards like Fiendish Chain, a card that just sits on one monster and stays there for however long it stays. I'm talking about cards like Vanity's Emptiness, Kaiser Coliseum, cards that actually dictate what the opponent can do over an extended period of time, not necessarily dictating what one card can do. Normally, the shape of the game and how it's played, it forces the opponent in a position where they cannot recover from. For example, the Bujin Yamato that you guys are seeing right now with Kaiser Coliseum face up would be a very hard feat to get over, mainly because Bujin Yamato cannot be destroyed by battle, can't be targeted. If you attack into it, I can crane you, can't be destroyed by card effects. So that monster is more than likely going to sit on the field. And when I mean it can't be destroyed by battle and all that stuff, I'm talking about through the Bujin cards. But it's not going to be getting rid of anytime soon. And Kaiser Coliseum says you can't have any more monsters than me. So basically, I get an indestructible monster that can run over any of your monsters, and you can't play more monsters than me, preventing you from furthering your strategy. But since my strategy is already on board, and I've already successfully established it, it puts you at a very hard time to win. And that is the point of a Floodgate. That is exactly how you make Floodgates. Now, the biggest thing is, are Floodgates healthy? And that's a really good question one must ask themselves when they look into a Yu-Gi-Oh! Game like this. Some Floodgate cards like Skill Drain, Vanity's Emptiness, and Kaiser Coliseum are not touched by the ban list in any way, shape, or form. And that must rattle you, because when you look on paper, these cards are extremely good. Vanity's Emptiness from preventing the opponent from special summoning, Kaiser Coliseum preventing the opponent from playing more monsters to you as long as you require a monster, and Skill Drain negating all monster effects on the field. So those cards are really, really good. And you would think that they would deserve some place on the list. Should they? Some Floodgates are not really healthy for the game in any way, shape, or form. There's a lot of Floodgates that are hit on the list. Cards like Royal Oppression, Soul Drain, and Cold Wave are drastically hit on the list, with only one of them being at 1 and the other 2 being banned. And that's where we have to look at the forbidden list and be like, wait, Konami, what exactly are you saying about Floodgates? Because normally all of one card is either off the list or hit. For example, Traptrix DNA, Cold Soldier Wolfbark, and Satellar Knight Altair. All 3 of those monsters are special summoned from the graveyard type cards. They're all Wolfbark-like cards, but Wolfbark was the only one on the list. Well, come the next format, Wolfbark came completely off the list, mainly because Altair is a watered-down Wolfbark and Dionea is kind of a superpower Wolfbark, so why couldn't Wolfbark have those 3? Konami is normally all for in or all for none type strategy right there, and they normally implement it on any type of strategy, like I just said with the Cold Soldier Wolfbark aspect. But the biggest thing is that half of the Floodgates are severely hit, and then another half of the Floodgates aren't touched at all. So we must really delve into the effect of these Floodgate cards that are not hit and see what Konami exact logic is. From my guessing, I would feel that Konami would think that these Floodgate cards are very balanced, and let's look exactly at their effects. Kaiser Coliseum dedicates you to have a monster on your side of the field. It also says your opponent can't plays more monsters than you, but you have to control a monster on your side of the field in order to maintain Kaiser Coliseum. That, and it doesn't initially get you any plus or negatives whatsoever. In the regular Yu-Gi-Oh! Theory aspect, you need plus or negatives to advance your game state. If you're not plussing or making your opponent go in the neg, then you're not really getting anywhere. Kaiser Coliseum doesn't fulfill this condition, and so far theory has only proved us when a card does not fulfill that position, it's not a great card. Kaiser Coliseum, the reason why it kind of misses the whole point of the plus neg theory is because it prevents your opponent from plussing. So it's not necessarily a leg to the opponent, but it's definitely hurting their plus. The biggest thing about Kaiser Coliseum not being as broken as people would think is that it does require you to have a monster on the field. And the way that games are changing, the way that the game is evolving, getting rid of one monster on the field is not as hard as you guys will think. Another thing about Kaiser Coliseum is that the person playing Kaiser Coliseum has to dedicate their board to one monster. That's right. So if something was to ever happen to that monster, or if they weren't to draw any monsters, Kaiser Coliseum becomes completely dead and useless. The next thing I want to talk about is Skill Drain. Now, Skill Drain is a really tricky card. Skill Drain's effect reads that if the monster is face up on resolution, the effect is negated. I'm going to say that as a very brief way to describe Skill Drain in its non-brokenness. That means there's so many other effects that can get off while Skill Drain is on the field. For the example, Rescue Rabbit. Sure, I'm going to use that one. Rescue Rabbit's effect vanishes at cost, removing her in play. Now keep in mind, all cards do activate and resolve in the same spot, so the chain link will still be held on side of the field. But since Rescue Rabbit is no longer on the side of the field, its effect can successfully resolve, and you can special summon 2 level 4 normal monsters from your deck with the same attack. Or is it just 2 level 4 lower? Beside the point. The deck is just, or Skill Drain as a card is just a really, really balanced card in that aspect, because we have so many other ways to activate effects, from our hand to our graveyard, for monsters that activate on a field and vanish themselves. As long as the monster is not face up on resolution on the side of the field, then the monster effect will completely go through, and there's just a plethora of cards to get around it. Skill Drain definitely still is a very deadly card, but there's a lot of ways to play around such a great card, and also prevents your opponent from activating set effects as well. The last card I want to talk about is Vanity's Emptiness. Now, Vanity's Emptiness is a very interesting card that will shape a format. I feel like Vanity's Emptiness is a lot more stronger than both Kaiser Coliseum and Skill Drain both combined. Why? Because Vanity's Emptiness prevents a very key aspect to this game from, playing. Vanity's Emptiness prevents both players from special summoning. But the concept behind Vanity's Emptiness is to sit on a huge board, and then Vanity's Emptiness the opponent, and prevent them from special summoning monsters themselves to counteract you. Now, this was a theorized a long time ago before Vanity's Emptiness was even brought up or made. This was the Royal Oppression theory, where as the opponent would sit on cards like Stardust, Colossal Fighter, Dark Arm, blah, 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 and then Royal Oppression the opponent to prevent them from going in their Stardust and blah, blah, blah in the Teledat format. Now, with that being said, you wouldn't really want to replicate a card as bad as Royal Oppression again? Why would you do that, Konami? But here's the thing. When a card is sent from your deck to the graveyard or your field to the side of the graveyard, Vanity's Emptiness is destroyed. Now that can be taken as a good thing and a bad thing, because the good thing is now the opponent gets to choose when to turn off the Vanity's Emptiness. And then the bad thing is, well, that's actually the bad thing. And the good thing is, I guess, the only thing you need to do is get over an opponent's card. Sometimes Vanity's Emptiness can wind up screwing your opponent either, because cards like Trap Stun do exist, and then cards like Mystical Space Typhoon do exist. So it actually takes a lot of skill in deck building with whatever type of deck you're playing. If you know you're extremely vulnerable to Vanity's Emptiness, and you know that everybody in your local level, regional level, YCS level is playing Vanity's Emptiness, then maybe you should be playing something to stop the Vanity's Emptiness from hitting the board. And that's why I ultimately feel Vanity's Emptiness is obviously the best Floodgate card that we have in our meta. Probably the best Floodgate card in the game that's not banned. Actually, I would go as far as to say it's the best Floodgate card in the game that's not banned. And any deck that really wants to win has to predicate its success on Vanity's Emptiness. But that's nonetheless, I'm just explaining why Floodgate cards are just so good. So, to wrap things up, Floodgate cards seem to only be healthy when it is not hitting dire ports in the game, or the maintenance cost is too high. And that's their drawback on the game. That's why they exist or that's why half of them exist in the game. That's why half of them don't. And that's why they're so effing good. Well, thank you guys for watching another segment of The Cali Effect. Please like, comment, subscribe. But most of all, enjoy.